are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is our first Q&A of the new year. So hopefully we'll get all your questions answered today. We're going to take an hour. We're going to talk through what you can do if you just have no idea how to get started. I will be your host today, Nicole, that's my name. I've been working in SAP for almost 20 years now, or just over 20 years now. So I'm certified in production planning and manufacturing, but I'm pretty skilled in almost every other module within SAP. So hopefully if you have a functional question, I think I'm pretty confident I should be able to provide an answer. We've got some other support on the call today from Micromanagement, Claire Album. She's our training manager. Claire, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, all. Good morning. So today I will be helping moderate the call, make sure that all of your questions are answered. So we just ask, since we have several guests today, that you just type your question into the questions tab. So that makes it easier for us. So I'll go through, I will waitlist your question. If we're on one at the time, make sure that that is answered. So I will be your go-to helper for all things questions today. We'll make sure to get anything that you have answered. And in the past, if we don't have a quick answer to something, we'll just put it in our back pocket and I will shoot you an email after we are over. So we are excited you're all here, and let us know throughout the presentation what questions pop up so you don't have to wait till the very end.
Perfect, thank you. And we've also got Sarah, one of my favorite people in the world. Sarah, she is going to be on the call today in case any of you may have more technical questions. Sarah, I apologize. I do not know your official title with Micromanagement team, but she's quite the techie, which is one of the things I love about her. Sarah, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks so much, Nicole. Hey, everyone. I'm Sarah Blackman, and I head the customer success department as well as the dedicated access department and the affiliate department. But dedicated access as well as public access is kind of my baby, and it's what I work on the most, and that's what we're going to be talking about today is our SAP access. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. All right, so between the three of us, hopefully there is no question that goes unanswered. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is the system access options. The whole Q&A today is around getting into SAP through the Micromanagement subscriptions. What can you do? How to get you started if you're not quite sure how to get started with your SAP access. So we're going to talk today first about what systems you can access, and there are tons of options out there. If you go to the website, which we'll take a look at a little bit later, there are multiple system options available. These are just some of the most popular. And Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, these are the latest and greatest, right? The 1809, if there's a newer update, it may be reflected out on the website. But they're always the latest and greatest as they come out, as they get tested by Micromanagement, you'd have access to those. The subscriptions are offered in a monthly or a yearly. And keep in mind, you always have a 10-day trial. Sarah, why don't you tell them about the 10-day trial?
Yeah, so S/4HANA 2020 is the brand newest. That's not even a year old, right? So it's super fast. So that's what I always recommend if you're not sure what you want, to start there. So we have what we call a 10-day worry-free guarantee or customer guarantee. Basically, you pay for your system. We set it up typically in an hour or less. You have 10 days to request a full refund if for whatever reason it doesn't suit your needs. You no longer need it. Maybe you're a consultant and you thought you were getting a project and the project gets canceled. Whatever happened, we don't care. Just let us know, chat, email, call, and say, hey, please go ahead and cancel me and give me my full refund, and I will make that happen for you.
Yeah, so it really is risk-free. And another point to consider here is if you do sign up for one system and it's not what you want, you can always ask to change to a different system. So there's no penalty there. Michael Management is super flexible. The point here is we want you to be happy with whatever you're getting. So if you subscribe to one system, for example, the 1809, and you want to switch it, that's totally doable. You're not locked in. Okay, so again, if you do have questions, just go ahead and throw them into the chat. I'm sorry, the questions panel on your webinar, and we will come back to those and start going through those one by one here shortly. So when you do have access.
Sorry, Nicole,
Yeah.
it looks like we've got a question from Ravi on YouTube. Ravi, we do not have any IS or industry-specific solutions included in our SAP Access. So no, we do not have the IS HMED available.
Okay, cool.
Okay, great. And we do have, Nyan, I do see your questions. We have 3 coming in. I think they'll be more appropriate after this slide. So I will ask, so just as a heads up, we have 3 good questions coming in after this slide.
Perfect. Yeah, so if your question is out there, it may get answered in the next few slides. If not, we will certainly open it up where we have a section of the hour today where we will go to that questions panel and go through them one by one. If your question does get answered, I think you can withdraw it. So just keep that in mind. So let's talk about what you can do with the access that you have. And again, this would apply to any of the systems that you have. So configuration, if you're a consultant or if you're someone who wants to learn about configuration, either doing it on your own or just being able to see how it exists in the system, you would have access to the configuration for that system. If you are someone who is interested in ABAP development, maybe you are an ABAP developer and you just need a system to test in and keep your skills sharp. There is a developer package that you could purchase. It is a little bit separate, but that is an option for those of you that are looking for that. And obviously, you would have the ability to create and transact data. So if you're not on the technical side from a configuration or development side, and you're more functional, more of a user, just learning to practice, learning to get some experience with SAP, there is master data in the system. It is kind of wide open, so you can always look for data that's been created by other users, or you can create your own. Just keep in mind that it is an open system. So whatever you do create would be out there for anyone else to play with and transact with. But you would have full access to the system that you subscribe to do any of these functions.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicole. And I think, Nyan, hopefully that answered your questions. I will go through just so that we make sure. So the first question asked was what you just touched on, if the access is shared with other users or if it is individualized. So thank you for asking that one and answering that one, Nicole. The second question we have is, am I able to reset data and start over as many times as I want?
I'm not sure what you mean by reset data. I've never heard it put quite that way, but you can always create new data. You can always stage new data. You can always undo transactions. Yeah, so you have full access to do whatever you want in the system. So if you're creating an invoice or posting an invoice or doing a goods receipt, you can always undo that and restage the data to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. Going back to question 1, though, let's come back to whether or not it's individualized. We do have private system options. So the default option is obviously the shared system that we talked about, but if you have a specific need where you need a private system, maybe you're a consultant or something of that nature and you need to set up a demo for a client, you obviously don't want to do that in a shared system. So there are options to go with a private system where you would not have to share that system with anyone. You alone would control that system config and the development, and then most importantly, you would have full control of the data that you stage. So that is also an option as well. So let's come back to those questions. I believe we answered that.
Yeah.
What's
great.
the third question? Was there a third one out there, Claire?
Yes. Yeah, and let us know, type in if you want any further clarification. But the third question you've already touched on as well is asking if the access permits someone to practice setup options that they would need to do if they were a consultant.
Yes, so I assume that means config, if that's not what you're referring to. Yes, config, perfect. Okay, great.
They said 12 questions answered. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about configuring your GUI. If you log into the system for the first time and you want to make sure it looks and feels the way you want it to, that will be done through your GUI configuration. And you get to that through your through your Windows Start menu. This option is also available on a Mac, an iOS, a MacBook. It's slightly a little bit different, but you would still have that GUI configuration option available, whether you're on Windows or a Mac. So just find that in your menu, in your programs, click on that, and then you can change anything from the color to the font to the entire look and feel. So this is just basically all it does is control how the screens look. It does not control functionality. The system is what it is, but it's like changing your shirt, every day. Just change how the system is presented to you. And that's really more of a personal preference. Let's talk about logging in case there are some participants today that are just extremely new to SAP and you don't even know how to log in. You want access? Let's make sure you know how to log in. Once you download that GUI, once you buy access, you will get instructions on how to download the GUI. There's also a free video out on the Micromanagement website walking you through the download and installation of the GUI. Once you have that, you would just double click on the system. So the system or systems that you have subscribed to will be listed as your connections, and you just double click on the system that you want to log into. And then from there, you will be asked to log in with the client that will be provided to you with your subscription. When you get the email confirmation, your user ID will be provided to you, and you'll have an initial password. So you will be asked to change that password as soon as you log in for the first time. And if you forget it, no worries. You can always reach back out to Micromanagement through the chat feature on the website, or Sarah, remind me of the email. Is it info@micromanagement.com?
That's it.
I remembered. So you can always chat through the website, which I have done personally, or you can request a password reset through the info@micromanagement.com. So no worries there.
Yeah, and there is a URL where you can reset it yourself, and that URL is on the FAQ page. So you're able to do it yourself if you don't want to wait.
That was something you guys just introduced, I think, maybe late last year, right? So that was really cool. Yeah, so if you don't want to wait and you don't want to bother anybody, I will go through that. We'll actually go out to the website at the end of the presentation today and kind of show you the navigation of where to find some of these helpful features. So once you're in SAP, I highly recommend setting up some favorites, especially if you have transactions out there that you either want to use frequently and you don't want to have to worry about finding them in the menu path, or perhaps you have transactions that you don't use frequently and you'll never remember what those are. That's what I use my favorites for. Things that I use frequently, I usually memorize those transaction codes pretty quickly. It's the ones that I don't use frequently that I want quick access to. So those are the ones I want in my favorites. You can create your favorites several ways. You can either right-click on the favorites folder and then choose the insert transaction option. And then you will just type in the transaction code that you want to add. Or you can find it in the menu, in the SAP menu down below, and then drag it and drop it into your favorites. So those are, again, personal preference, how you do that, but it is a quick way to get transactions right there at your fingertips. I would also highly encourage you, the first time you log in, to go check your user settings. This is user by user, so in system by system or client by client. So if you do subscribe to multiple systems, this is something that you would need to do in each system. You go check your user settings. That is through the menu path of the More. and that is here, your More button. You'll see an option for System, and then you'll see the option for User Data. That will bring you to your user profile. And on the Defaults tab, you can see the logon language is set there, the decimal notation. I think it defaults to the US standard format. So if you're perhaps in Europe or it's backwards, you can change that. And then you can also set your date and time format to be however you want it displayed. So that's something I always do when I first log in to a new system. At least verify that it's what you want, and if not, make the changes. Let's talk about the SAP menu. When you get into SAP, the point is to do something, right? We want to either play, we want to do a demo, we want to practice, whatever it is. So I encourage you to explore the functions available in SAP. And the ones I have circled here, you may have heard the term functional module. SAP is comprised of various functional modules, and that's what the SAP menu represents, right? So these are just some of the more common ones. The materials management module, if you are interested in learning and playing in that module, that's where you find it. Under the logistics folder, under the SAP menu, within the logistics folder is where you'll find some of the more common. The one exception to that is the finance and accounting module. That is going to be in its own folder directly under the SAP menu. But everything else is pretty much found under that logistics folder. So materials management, sales and distribution, your logistics, production planning, and quality. Those are some of the more common ones. So if you click into those folders, you will see even more detail, ultimately leading you to an individual transaction that you can execute, such as create a material master or do a goods receipt. All of those transactions are logged under the appropriate functional module. So again, the point of this Q&A today is to jumpstart you, especially if you're brand new to SAP. So, if you want to figure out what's in the system, especially from a data perspective, I would point you to MM60. Let's just go query the database and see what materials are in the system. Because typically when you're doing something in SAP, you're gonna need a material master record, right? So finding a material set up in the system, MM60, that would be my first recommendation. Query the database, take a look at the materials to see what's out there. If you can use them for your purposes, great. If not, at least you have a record that you can maybe copy from, give you an idea of what you need to set up for your purpose, for your intent. Maybe you want to look at some sales orders. Another transaction query, VA05. So from a sales and distribution perspective, you can go query the database and you can look at any and all sales orders that are currently in the system that you subscribe to. Finance, if you're interested in some finance transactions, you can look for GL accounts, and that may jumpstart you. From these transactions, you can rabbit hole or dovetail into other pieces of data. You can end up exploring the system just by continuously digging and digging and digging as you find transactions. Just keep going, and the more you see, the more you're going to learn. And if you have specific questions, that's where I would point you out to the micromanagement website. If you're curious about something, find an on-demand video that may help explain that particular object or function in a little bit more detail. When you are in the system, you will inevitably come across an error message. Something's not going to work. That's just the nature of any system. No one is born an SAP expert. So if you're here today, you're trying to get in the system, you may come across something that doesn't make any sense to you. And SAP, being SAP, the messages are not always self-explanatory. So don't give up. Don't stomp your feet. Well, maybe stomp your feet and take a break and then come back and then try to figure it out. There is a wealth of information on the micromanagement website, including an error lookup tool, which we'll take a look at shortly, that will help explain what that error is and possibly how to fix it. off chance that the micromanagement error lookup tool is not helpful, I highly recommend Googling it. I've been doing this for 20 years and I still Google things. There are tons of SAP forums out there that will guide you into what that error means and how you might go about fixing it. But I would definitely start with the error lookup tool on micromanagement. It's a quick lookup tool. And again, if that doesn't help, there's tons of information on the web. But don't give up. That's the part. That's how you're going to become skilled in SAP, is working through those error messages.
Yeah, and don't forget we have a LinkedIn group as well for people who are doing SAP training. So you could always utilize that as a resource.
Well, that's a great. We should add that to this one of our slides here. I think I want to make sure we point that out for future Q&As. That's good to know. Okay, so this is the point where I'd like to pause and take care of some questions. It looks like, Naim, we got all of your question answered. From Carolina, we have, can I create my own master data? Yes. So in case you joined a little bit late, yes, you can absolutely. I will go back to that slide here and just show what you can do in SAP. So anything, once you subscribe to a system, you have full access to that system. So from configuration, the ABAP development is a separate package. The creating and transacting data is the whole point. So you would have full access to that system to do whatever it is you want to do, including just stare at the screen blankly. Hopefully that's not what you do. Hopefully once you've got a subscription, you know exactly what you want to do and you've got the skills to do it. So Sarah, I think something you've mentioned in past Q&As, if you're at the point where you're getting subscriptions to the system, you're not a newbie, right? If you are a newbie and you have no idea what you want to do or can do in SAP, we would not necessarily recommend you start off with a subscription. We would recommend you start off with some of our other resources, which we'll be talking about shortly. And I'm going to let Sarah talk about those because she's our expert in that regard.
Yeah, and you're completely right about that. Basically, SAP, if you've not used it before, it's not an intuitive software. It's not the kind of software that you can just jump in and click around and figure it out. Even really highly technically skilled people who usually can learn by just playing in software, it's just not possible with SAP because it's so expansive. It's a software system that's been in the works for many decades now, and it has changed the way a lot of things work over the years. A lot of conventions have changed, rules have changed, so it's just not the kind of thing that you can jump in and play around and figure out, even if you taught yourself Photoshop or InDesign or CAD or other, more advanced software. You really want to train first before you get into an SAP Access system, because you'll just be logged into the system and then you'll have no idea what to do because it really doesn't tell you what to do. You have to know.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so
and it looks like we do have a, sorry,
yeah.
Nicole, it looks like we do have a follow-up question, and it's quite a long question, so I don't know if you can read that. Nicole and Sarah, I'm happy to read it out loud as well.
No, I got it. Yeah, I got it here.
You got it. Okay.
Yeah. So is the config the same as setting up master data? I'm going to answer that one first. It's not the same. So the configuration is the system setup. So for example, when you first implement SAP, you need to set the configuration that your company wants. So you need to define your plan, your company code, your sales orgs. You need to define your material types that you intend to use. All of the order types that you intend to use. So when we say config, that is setting up the system to be used by your business. The master data is once the configuration is done, you are ready to use the system that has been propped up, that has been configured. The master data is where that comes into play. So the master data is creating your materials, creating your customers, transacting sales orders to ship something to a customer, invoicing your customers. That's all on the data side. The next question you have is, would you be able to reset or start over? from a config point, sure. If you configure something and you want to change it, you can always, change it. You can back it out and create new config. You can change anything at the config level. The data, SAP doesn't really delete data. There are some objects that can be deleted, but typically if you just want to start over, you just abandon whatever you did and start fresh. So, using the material master example, you goofed something on your material master. If you know how to fix it, great, go fix it on that record. If not, just create a brand new material and move on. So I hope that's answering your question, Nyan. If not, feel free to clarify a little bit more. Okay, so while we wait for, yes, thank you, you're very welcome. While we wait for more questions to come in, let's talk about some of those free resources that Michael Management offers. There are ebooks, cheat sheets, infographics, a wealth of information on the Michael Management website, and this is the link. And you guys will get this PowerPoint, this presentation that we're looking at today, so you'll have all this information. But this is the link, and we'll look at it on the website in a little bit. There's also a blog of how to get started with your SAP Access subscription, and then that error message tool that I mentioned before. This is the link to get directly to that. So if you do run into an error, I would start here. Let's talk about some not so free resources. They're not free, but I would say they are absolutely worth the investment. So between the simulation courses and the one-on-one, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to discuss those.
Yeah, so I think the simulation courses are probably my favorite way to learn, and probably most of our students' favorite way to learn, because it's not just a course, but you get almost like a miniature version of the sandbox within the course. So you learn by doing, and then there's a test at the end where also actually doing transactions, working in a live test system in the course. A great thing about our courses too is you can retake them as many times as you like, or individual lessons for up to a year from purchase. So you can get all the practice you need. We have what we call the Fab 4, which are all simulation style courses. And they are 4 courses that we recommend to anyone that doesn't have SAP experience to help you learn SAP.
Right. So I think we mentioned before, if you are completely new to SAP, we would not necessarily recommend that you start out with a subscription to the system. These simulation courses, the on-demand training courses that are offered, these are probably where you want to start in your SAP journey. Okay, so that wraps up what I've got to present. Are there any other questions? Again, we'll just open it up from those of you on the call, or maybe Facebook or YouTube. Any questions that we have not answered? If not, I'm going to hop over to the website.
I think we had one question from YouTube that I wasn't sure how to answer from Cynthil. He said he wants to know about profit center allocation. Do you know anything about that, Nicole?
Well, the allocation, yeah, that's more of a finance. That's the one module that I'm not skilled in. But all the functionality is available. So, from setting up your material master, assigning a profit center, doing your profit center analysis through, like running your P&Ls and all of that functionality is available in the system. So if that's something you're trying to learn how to do or set up in demo, yes, that functionality is there. Was there any other questions from Facebook or YouTube?
I don't see any more coming in right now.
Okay, no worries. Let's just go out to the website. For those of you that may not be familiar with the website, michaelmanagement.com. Just kind of briefly navigate it. If you look at the top here, there are 4 navigation buttons. So the SAP courses, all of the on-demand courses that are out there are thousands of them. I myself am an instructor. So for example, if you type in my name, you will find all of my courses that I have published. I will shamelessly promote them if you're interested in planning, production planning, purchasing, materials management type functionality. If not, you won't hurt my feelings. There are tons of other courses available. There are learning paths that are guided for you to if you really don't even know where you want to start, I would point you to those learning paths and let the micromanagement site guide you. The SAP Access, here is where we have all the system options that you could subscribe to. So again, the most popular ones are at the top, but if you just continue to scroll down, you will see all of the options that are available. And again, those subscriptions are offered in monthly or yearly with the 10-day trial. And if you start in one system and you want to switch to another one, that is totally okay as well. Okay. Let's go to the resources tab. So here's the blog I mentioned. The facts, I think Sarah mentioned before, on this facts page, you have your reset password option here. Downloading that GUI, the contact, all of those frequently asked questions are right there at your fingertips. And the downloads, here is that link for the ebooks, the cheat sheets, the infographics, a wealth of information right here in this little bucket. Looks like we have some more questions coming through, so let me. It looks like, thank you. Yes, you're welcome, Nyan. Okay. Claire, anything else coming from YouTube?
No,
or Facebook?
I don't see any questions, but one of our attendees does have their hand raised. So I believe it's Jeannie or Jean. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation, but feel free if you want to input a question, just type that in to the question tab. We'll be happy to get that answered. And it looks like we do have another question coming in from Nyan asking, can we talk more about selecting the system for access?
Which of the options do we decide on? So that's really up to you, and I may not be understanding your question, but let me go back to here. It's really dependent on you and what you need. So if you, for example, have a client or you're trying to get skilled with the new S4HANA, then obviously I would recommend you go with the S4HANA. If you don't know what system you want, I would go with the S4HANA 2020 with Fiori. That's the system that everyone is migrating to. So from a functional perspective, those are your options. If you want to stay within an ECC 6.0, then we have those as well. So if everything you're doing, your clients, your demos, you're not ready for the S4HANA platform, there are arguments to be made that you want to stick with the ECC 6.0. There are also CRM, so the customer relationship module, the business intelligence module. So it really just depends on what you need for yourself. I'm not sure that's a decision that we can make for you. But again, if you choose one and you get in it and it's not what you want, not what you need, we can always help you, figure out, we can try to help you figure out what it is you do need and get you switched over. So hopefully, Nyan, that answered your question. So if we have no particular need, yes, exactly. So if you're not like specializing in CRM or something, I would suggest just get to the S4HANA. That is the platform that everyone is migrating to. Or that's what SAP expects everyone to migrate to. So yeah, I would go straight there. And as Sarah mentioned earlier, it is super fast. So that is something I'm looking forward to playing with very soon. Okay, any more questions? If not, I have gone through the website. Let me just also point out the chat feature in case you haven't seen it there. On every page, you will see the little blue chat icon in the bottom right corner. And if you click on that, you will open the chat. And as you can see right now, it looks like Claire is monitoring that. Sometimes it's Sarah, sometimes it's someone else, but there is always someone there to help. What are the hours again, Sarah, that the chat is available?
It is 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday.
There you go. So if you have a question about anything that we've talked about today, click that chat button or that info@michaelmanagement.com email as well. But if it is password related, as we said, you can do that on your own now through the resources, through that frequently asked questions site.
And Nyan is asking, I think this is a great question for you to answer, Sarah. They are asking, is the chat manned by a live person or AI?
It is live people. That's why it's only open during certain hours. So it is me or one of my lovely assistants handling chat during those hours.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have not ever had that question before. I said it's always an actual person. Okay. Any other questions? If not, then we'll give it a few more minutes, a few more seconds to see if anything comes through Facebook or YouTube or our GoToWebinar. If not, then I wish you well on your SAP journey. And we do this chat every month, I think. Is that what our schedule is this year, Claire? Is it every month or every other month?
This year, yeah, we are doing it every other month. The month that we don't do an SAP Access walkthrough, we will be interviewing one of our SAP instructors. So we do an hour with them where you can join just like this, come on and listen to them talk about their career, their SAP module, their expertise, and ask any questions to them. So you will, each month you can join us with something.
With something, yeah. So, if you have questions that you didn't think of today, you can always join us next time. Or, if you want some answers immediately, you know how to get in touch.
Yeah.
So
and our YouTube channel has a ton of resources and we always live stream. So this is being live streamed right now. So if you want to watch previous month's live SAP Access walkthroughs, there's always different questions. So there are hours and hours worth of content available if you are very interested in learning more about SAP.
Perfect. And it looks like a hand came up and then went back down. So no worries. Okay. We'll give it a few more seconds for some additional questions. And if not, then I will say goodbye and thank you for your time today. I wish you all well. Have a wonderful day.